الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم. نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل من قبل هدى للناس وأنزل الفرقان. إن الذين كفروا بآيات الله لهم عذاب شديد والله عزيز ذو انتقام. إن الله لا يخفى عليه شيء في الأرض إن الله والذي يصوركم في الأرحام كيف يشاء لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول رسول الله وآله الأطهار. اللهم صل على محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, as always, gratitude and blessings to our beloved reciter Hajj Gul Ahmed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, insha'Allah. In life, oftentimes, it's crucial for us, especially at a young age, to establish and set goals that we pursue. Now, as we pursue these goals, whether they are worldly or spiritual, we have to first of all, of course, be careful not to cross the extremes when it comes to the religion of Islam. And second of all, we have to keep in mind that as we pursue these goals, we'll face many challenges along the way. These goals can be worldly or spiritual. For example, pursuing something academic, medicine, engineering, law, something related to sports, basketball, whatever it is. Something more religious or spiritual, Quran recitation, nasheed, latmiya, that kind of thing. Something that really ignites your passion, something where your interest lies. It's important that we invest our energy and hard work in this activity, and we're willing to face the challenges that we'll inevitably face along the road. These challenges can present themselves in the form of doubts, and as Hajj Gul Ahmed was reciting the final chapter of the Quran, the whispers of the shaitan, the doubts that we experience often manifest themselves in the whispers of the shaitan, as well as the whispers of the people around us. And we have to be careful how we address these challenges. And inshallah, that will be the subject of tonight's discussion. As our youth speaker hasn't arrived yet, inshallah ta'ala, I'd like to invite our brother Mustafa Al-Madhaji to deliver a nasheed for tonight's program. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, a dedication to, and we pay our condolences to Sahib al-Asr wa-Zaman and al-Ummah al-Islamiyya on the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra, salam Allah alayha. And I would like to start with Ziyarat Warith, and then a short nasheed dedicated to Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من متلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتم عملي وقلبي لقلبكم سيل وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض فلعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتهيأت وتنقبت لقتالك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله قصدت حرمك وأتيت إلى مشهدك أسأل الله بالشأن الذي لك عنده وبالمحل الذي لك لدي أن يصلي على محمد وآله وأن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة يا زهراء فاطمة مظلومة. Inshallah, from this blessed place we all say it and let all the world hear, inshallah, with our loud voices. Ya Allah. فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة يا زهراء فاطمة مظلومة Let me hear your voice. فاطمة مظلومة يا زهراء فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة يا زهراء. Did you know they hurt her, they pushed her, slapped her, they killed her infant son, and nothing was done. But that day soon will come. Did you know they hurt her, they pushed her and slapped her, they killed her infant son, and nothing was done. But that day soon will come. Oh dear mother, we're waiting for the day. Oh dear mother, the Mahdi we await. Oh dear mother, your love brings us together. فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة زهراء فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة فاطمة مظلومة يا زهراء Dear mother, we know you're attending this majlis, mourning Hussein, grieving his pain, forgetting your own pain. What does Fatima al-Zahra say to her beloved son? My dear Hussein, there's nothing like your dad. My dear Hussein, you stood alone in pain. My dear Hussein, my dear Hussein, I also attended your death. How much love does a mother have on her son? Fatima mazluma, Fatima mazluma, Fatima mazluma, ya Zahra, ya Zahra. صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وآل محمد. Jazakallah khair, beloved brother Mustafa al-Madhaji, for that beautiful remembrance of Bibi Fatima al-Zahra salamullahu alayha. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we can all preserve her memory in our hearts and remember her example as we live our lives. Insha'Allah ta'ala, we'll proceed with the next segment of the program. I'd like to invite our brother Jahangir Hussain to deliver a short presentation for the night. Please welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. Today, my topic is about overcoming doubts. I'll start with what doubts are and why it occurred and how we can overcome them. So doubt is when there's a confusion, suspense, two-mindedness, and wandering. Doubts about what we believe and why we believe it are natural. In fact, it is often those doubts that cause people to embrace Islam. A doubt about the validity of their belief system often sends people on a search for something they can understood and believe in. Having doubts about your chosen religion or aspects of that religion may happen, but the difference is that Islam allows us to be both forewarned and forearmed to deal with doubts. Islam is often described as informed knowledge rather than blind faith. Therefore, when doubts arise, we are able to deal with them. Doubts are a disease that can cause great damage to our spiritual health if they are left to fester rather than be confronted for what they are. Tricks and illusions thrown at us like arrows from the bows of Shaitan. Shaitan is humankind's sworn enemy. Just as he is able to whisper evil thoughts into our hearts, he is also able to fill our minds with doubts. Doubts are designed to cause a disquiet and confusion. Sometimes a person is unable to distinguish between what is planted by Shaitan and what we think of our own volition. On other occasion, the thoughts are of such a frightening nature that we are afraid to repeat them or examine them in case they condemn us or reveal us to be hypocritical or away from Islam. One should completely ignore such thoughts, doubts, and not ponder over them and seek a refuge from shaitan in Allah. What like we do, like we say, if some negative thought comes to our mind, we just say, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim." So I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed shaitan and ask for forgiveness. Doubt is a kind of blindness. Blind man remains doubtful of those things also which are just spread around him because he does not see them. If a thing is proved true by wisdom, by conscience, and by rational argument, and one still doubts about it, then surely the eyes of his heart are blind. He is deprived of the blessings of discernment, reason, and Sharia command, and the paramount responsibility of such a person is that he should try to obtain the cure of his disease of doubt. Obviously, there are some doubts which are not like kind of sin, which just came to our mind. But there are a few doubts which, if we don't sort it out, like if we don't get any answers, and then definitely they can damage us. So Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Imam Jafar Sadiq has said that a person who is apparently a Muslim, but in his heart he has doubt about Allah and the Prophet, and he dies in this same condition, he will be included among the infidels. And in the latter part of the tradition, Imam says that if that person openly refuses to believe in Allah and the Prophet, he would also be apparently considered as infidel. So that's the extreme side, So if we still doubt after knowing about Allah and the Prophet, and if we have some not that strong faith, so obviously the shaitan can damage us, like our faith. So if we still have some questions, we definitely ask to someone who is like knowledgeable person like Sheikh. So we must clear our doubts if we have like in Islam. So good deeds in the state of doubt are totally useless. Imam Jafar Sadiq says, surely the doubt and sin both will be in the fire of hell, and people connected with doubt and sin would also be there. So he also said that one who has born on inherent nature, having belief in oneness of Allah, so and his parents are also Muslim, even then if he has doubt about Allah, then he would never return to good. So it's saying, but I doesn't mean that So if you are Muslim, if you raised in a Muslim family, so obviously you must be having questions related to your religion. You should go and seek the answers. And Imam Muhammad Baqir al-Islam, regarding this, he said that any action with doubt and refusal has no benefit at all. So, and in the same chapter, Imam Muhammad Baqir al-Islam says that the Prophet of Allah used to seek Allah's refuge from 6 things, like every day, which is the very first one, doubt, polytheism, arrogance, anger, cruelty, and jealousy. So there are numerous verses and traditions on the censor of doubt, on the destruction of those who doubt. In Quran, it stated that وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَتْهُمْ رِجْسًا إِلَىٰ رِجْسِهِمْ وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ كَافِرُونَ. While explaining about this ayah, Imam Jafar Sadiq al-Islam said the meaning of rijs in this ayat is doubt. That is above their doubt, one more like doubt increases in safe and sound heart. There is nothing other than Allah. And there's one more ayat from Surah Shura, which says, إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمًا. Meaning, if a person goes to Allah with safe and sound heart, he will be benefited. So Imam Jafar Sadiq al-Islam was asked about the meaning of this noble verse. He said, safe and sound heart is the one which meets his Lord and in which there is no one but Allah. So, and also Imam said that, and each of these hearts in which infidelity or doubt exists is going to fall in the hole of destruction. So that's extreme sort of doubt. So if you die having doubts like, why we are, praying, does Allah exist, or if there is one God or no. So if these sort of doubts you have in your mind, and if you don't go and search for the answers from Sheikh or from anyone knowledgeable person, so then obviously it's your I would say that you should go and seek the answers if you still have doubts. So if you're not going searching for these answers, so you could be like called infidel, even though if you born and raised in a Muslim family. So your faith should be like strong. And I would also add one more thing. I'll say why doubts occur and which it means and how we should respond to them. So doubts about what we believe and why we believe, it's totally natural. And Shaitan is humankind's sworn enemy. Just as he's able to whisper evil thoughts into our hearts, he's also able to fill our minds with doubts, doubts that are designed to cause disquiet and confusion. Sometimes a person is unable to distinguish between what is planted by Shaitan and what we think of our own. Also, there's also one more saying. Allah gives us a simple and clear matter in the Quran in terms of dealing with doubts, which says, ask the people of knowledge if you do not know. Which I just said that if you still don't have answers, you should go and seek answers from Shaykh. And the presence of doubts indicates a form of ignorance that is only removed by knowledge. The more one educates themselves and strengthen their faith, the stronger they will become in repelling nagging doubts. So that's all from my side. Thank you. Salawat.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Jazakallah khair, Brother Jahangir, for that insightful short discussion. Indeed, just as the brother mentioned, our faith has to be solid, compact, unshakable, and it has to reach a point where we have no doubt in the principles, the tenets, the roots of our faith, the Asul ad-Din, of course, Tawheed, Nabuwat, Imamat, all of these. And we arrived at that through reasoning, through understanding, through research. Just as we mentioned in the beginning, as you endeavor upon any journey, you're going to experience challenges, and doubts are one of those challenges. It's the very same thing with a journey where you're gaining knowledge in the religion of Islam. You're going to come across a lot of obstacles that make you question your beliefs. But never be ashamed of questioning your own beliefs. That's perfectly okay, as long as you can acquire the answers to those questions, understand and feel, know what it is to be a Muslim, live the life of a true Muslim. Insha'Allah ta'ala, reach that level by researching, asking questions, acquiring answers, building your knowledge. You reach that point of certainty, and insha'Allah ta'ala, we can all establish that position before we exit this dunya. With that, I would like to invite the main speaker for tonight. Please welcome His Eminence, Sheikh Hamid Waqar, with 3 loud salawats ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبو القاسم محمد. وَلَأَهْلَ طَيِّبِينَ الطَّاهِرِينَ الْمَعْصُومِينَ. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Alhamdulillah, it's always honor and a privilege to be here amongst you participating in these programs. And once again, I feel without me, the program is pretty amazing by itself. I don't even know why I'm here. But we have the Quran with Hajj Gul Ahmed, the beautiful Ziyarat Waritha, and poem with Hajj Mustafa, Jahangir with a nice lecture. What am I doing here? But what I wanted to do, I wanted to look at one hadith, and I won't take too much of your time. We'll just go over this hadith, try to figure out what it could mean, and then inshallah learn from it a little bit. And the last line of it mentions doubt, but the hadith is concentrating on, I guess I guess you could say it's the opposite of doubt, yaqeen, right? Certainty. So I wanted to look at that because I was asked with the topic, overcoming doubts, but also looking at how the Prophet and the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam didn't have doubts. So kind of looking at that. And the reason why they didn't have doubts was because they had yaqeen. All right, so I want to look at this yaqeen and the certainty, try to figure out kind of what it is a little bit from this hadith, some of the signs of it, and then we could look within ourselves and see if we have those signs. And if we don't, we could try to obtain them. Right? So we could increase our faith in that way, inshallah. All right. So this is a tradition, and it's mentioned in Al-Kafi, so it's a long chain of narration from Sheikh Kulaini, all the way to Abdullah ibn Sanan and Abi Abdullah alayhi salam, which is Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And he says, I'll read the whole hadith and then we'll go over it line by line. من صحة يقين المرء المسلم أن لا يرضي الناس بسخط الله. So among the things pertaining to the soundness of a Muslim's yaqeen or certainty is that he would not please people by displeasing God. So he would not please people by displeasing God. That's one sign of someone who has certainty. وَلَا يَلْوَمَهُمْ عَلَى مَا لَمْ يُؤْتِهِ اللَّهُ. Nor blame them for something that God has not given him. So that's the second sign. They won't blame other people. They won't blame them for something that God has not given him. All right? Continues. فَإِنَّ رِزْقَ لَا يَسُوقُهُ حِرْسُ حَرِيص وَلَا يَرُودُهُ كَرَاهِيَةُ قَارِئ. For verily rizq or sustenance is not brought about by anybody's greed, nor is it withheld by anybody's disapproval. وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ فَرَارَ مِنْ رِزْقِهِ كَمَا يَفِرُّ مِنْ مَوْتٍ لَأَدْرَكَهُ رِزْقَهُ كَمَا يُدْرِكُهُ الْمَوْتِ. I like that sentence a lot. It's very interesting, this one. And he says, if any one of you would try to flee and run away from his sustenance, just like, one would try to run away from death, his sustenance would overtake him, would cling to him, just like death will overtake you. Right? So basically, you can't escape from it. Your sustenance is what it is. Right? Which is very interesting. Then he continues. ثُمَّ قَالَ. So the Imam continues. There might be some part of this tradition that was discussed and is not mentioned in it, because at the thumma qal, maybe there was something there that we lost, but regardless, the next part of this tradition is this. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِعَدْلِهِ وَقِسْتِهِ جَعَلَ رَوْحَ وَرَاحَ فِي الْيَقِينِ وَالرِّضَى. Right, so then he added, indeed Allah with his justice and his fairness has put comfort in certainty and satisfaction. وَجَعَلَ الْهَمَّ وَالْحُزْنِ فِي الشَّكِّ وَالسَّخْطِ. And he has put sorrow in doubt and dissatisfaction. Okay, so that's the tradition that we're going to go over. Now, we'll try to go over line by line. We might not hit every single line, but we'll see what we can learn from this. So the first line, right? Min sihat al-yaqeen, so from the soundness of yaqeen, or like the health of yaqeen, right? Is what? An la yurdi an-nas bi-sakhatillah. Is that you're not trying to please people by displeasing God. That's huge, right? And you could look at yourself, you could see, do I ever do that? Right? Is this something that I do? Now, why would people do this? Why do people try to please other people? For some form of gain. I want to please you so I could get some financial benefit, right? I want to please the person who is interviewing me for a job so I get this job. I want to please, the people I work with so I get a promotion. I'm trying to please people in order to move ahead and make more money. Or maybe I'm trying to increase my fame and popularity. I want people to like me, so I'm pleasing people so more people like me. I want you to like me, so I'm going to do something nice for you. I'm going to please you, right? Or I might be trying to gain position and power, whatever it is. I'm trying to gain something. So when you're actively trying to please someone, there's a reason you're doing this. You're trying to gain something from that, right? Now, in and of itself, that's not negative. In and of itself, there's no problem with, being nice to other people, right? But if pleasing other people is displeasing God, if you're doing something which Allah does not like, and you're doing that in order to please someone to gain money or fame or popularity or power or whatever, then that's definitely, outside of the realm of yaqeen. Right? Someone with yaqeen, with certainty in faith, would not do that. Right? Examples. Accommodating a sin. Someone might be sinful. Someone might do things that are negative, and you won't, for instance, do your duty of amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. Why? Because you don't want to displease them. You don't want to upset them. So you're going to forego your religious responsibility, make Allah angry at you in order to not displease this person. Right? You might backbite or slander people. Right? We might be in a gathering, and I want this person to like me. So I'm going to start making fun of someone else. And I'm going to make, everybody laugh, and it's going to be a great time. And I'm doing this in order to make this one person like me more. Right? Right? And for whatever reason. If it's just popularity, but maybe even more than that. Maybe I'm trying to get something from him, whatever it is. But I'm trying to please him, create this environment, but by doing that, I'm displeasing God. Someone with yaqeen would never do that, right? Okay. So that's the first sign of yaqeen, is to make sure we're not trying to please other people at the cost of displeasing God. And you can look at yourself. You could look into your actions, into your interactions with people, into your conversations with people at school, in the workplace, wherever. Right? And you could see, am I falling into this? Introspect. We gain yaqeen through introspection, right? So introspect. Think about yourself. All right. Next one. Next line. وَلَا يَلْوَمَهُمْ عَلَى مَا لَمْ يُؤْتِهِ اللَّهُ, nor blame them for something that God has not given them. Now with this one, there's two ways to look at it. So Allama Majlisi looks at it in one way, Imam Khomeini looks at it in another way, not very far from each other, but small little differences. Allama Majlisi says that what this means is that one would not blame people and complain about them having something when I don't have it. All right, so let's say I work hard, I make X amount of money, and another person doesn't work as hard as me and makes twice as much money as me. And has a better car, has a bigger house, has all these, these toys that I don't have. And I could say, that's unfair. And I could complain about that, right? I'm complaining about this person having more than me, right? Now, obviously, this would mean that there's a problem in my yaqeen. I don't have yaqeen here because, as the Imam is saying, sustenance is something that Allah determines, not me. So if Allah determines to give someone else more than me, I should be fine with that. Right? That shouldn't be something that upsets me. Okay? Imam Khomeini says that one would not blame them for something Allah has not given them. Right? But realize that Allah gifts people differently. And he even mentions a hadith. He says, had the people known how God created men, no one would blame another person for anything. Right? So it's interesting how we look at that. Imam Khomeini says this. He has a book called 40 Hadith. And in this book, he explains this tradition in great detail. I just took one paragraph out because I thought it was pretty interesting. We'll read this paragraph together. He says, that is because one may blame people in the state of need and strained livelihood only if their livelihood is under their own control and one's effort and endeavor are the means of its increase. So what does that mean? He says, I feel this microphone isn't working well, is it? So what Imam Khomeini is saying, if one is blaming other people or even God, right, because this person has more money than I do, that means if I'm blaming them, that means I feel that the amount of sustenance and risk I have is dependent upon my own effort, that I have a say-so in this, right? If I don't have a say-so in how much risk I get, then I'm not going to be blaming other people for the amount of risk that they have, because it's all from God. Whatever God gave to me, alhamdulillah. What God gave to you, alhamdulillah. Doesn't matter. You have more than me, I have more than you. Doesn't matter. It's all from God. Right? So doesn't make sense to blame people if that's my understanding. Right? Now, there is one problem though. If we're saying this, which is what this hadith is clearly stating, does that mean that effort is meaningless? That seeking rizq is something we shouldn't be doing? And when we look through our scriptural sources, other hadith, we see the opposite. There's even stories that I came across which were really, really strong. Right? There's this one story where this was during the lifetime of our Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And in this time, one of the companions decided that risk is from God. It's predetermined. So I'm going to close my shop and I'm just going to go and worship. I'm not going to seek sustenance. Whatever Allah has determined is going to come to me anyways. So why am I working? I'm just going to go relax and pray all day. Right? So someone went to the Prophet and told him this. And did the Prophet say, wow, mashallah, he's praying all day? No. The Prophet went and he said, woe be unto you. What are you doing? The prayers of a person who does not seek livelihood are not accepted. It's huge. If that's what you want to do, your prayers aren't even accepted. You have to go seek livelihood. Right? So how do we reconcile between these 2 points? How do we reconcile by knowing that, whatever God's given me, alhamdulillah, my risk is ordained. And if I'm working twice as hard as you, and you're making twice as much as me, that's fine, because that's what God ordained. Right? How do I reconcile that with, if I don't go out and put effort and seek livelihood, my prayers aren't even accepted? Right? The way that Imam Khomeini looks and reconciles these two seemingly conflicting traditions is that he states that, look, what we need to realize is that our effort is not an independent agent that determines our risk, our sustenance. Our effort is not the whole picture, right? There's so many things that are out of our control that are in Allah's control here, that Allah determines our risk. But at the same time, Allah wants us to strive. So our striving and our effort to try to secure a halal livelihood, to try to take care of our family, to try to increase our knowledge and increase our skills and try to move forward in this world, all of that, right, is our duty, our responsibility. But the outcome of that is in Allah's hands. Right? So I could put forth a lot of effort. I could go to uni, I could study hard, I could, get whatever skills, try to work my way up the ladder, and whatever happens, right? I'm doing my duty here. However Allah wants to respond to that, does Allah want to give me more risk, less risk? How much will my risk be? Whatever Allah determines, I'm happy with that. I'm not doing this effort for that. My risk, I know, is there. I'm doing this effort because God wants me to. God wants me to try to succeed, put forth effort for success. That's why I'm doing it. If Allah said, don't work in this world and go in a mountain and pray all day, I'll do that too. Whatever He wants from me, that's what I'll do. And then however He responds to my efforts, alhamdulillah. Right? That's yaqeen. Not easy to have. I'm not saying that this is something we should all have right now and this is where we all are. No. Me, far from it. Right? But that's the mentality that the Imam is trying to instill in us. Right? And that sentence, right? If you try to flee from your sustenance, from your risk, meaning you try to get more or less, you're just trying to escape what's already ordained for you. Just like you might try to escape death. Right? There's people who try to escape death, right? They try to find some way to live longer. Right? Death is going to catch them. There's nothing you could do to flee from death. The Imam's saying there's nothing you can do to flee from your sustenance either. It's determined. That doesn't mean don't put effort. Right? Those are two different things. Right? But he's trying to, like in this hadith, we're trying to learn that. Okay? Now, let's go to the end of the tradition. And I saw the paper going around, so it's question and answers too, I think. Okay. So, ثُمَّ قَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِعَدْلِهِ وَقِسْتِهِ. Right? So, verily Allah, with His justice and fairness. And you could say adl and qist are both justice, synonyms. We could look at it, but we're just going to translate it this way. Now, why does he put these two characteristics of God here? When the Imam speaks, it's not just random, right? Obviously, there's a meaning here. So, the sustenance that Allah is talking, or that the Imam is talking about, and this yaqeen is part of Allah's program of justice, and fairness, which is interesting. But we'll skip over that part. There's a lot of depth there if you want to really think about it, but we're going to skip over that. Then he says, جَعَلَ الْرَوْحَ وَالرَّاحَ فِي الْيَقِينِ وَالرِّضَى. Okay? So he has put comfort, right, in certainty and rida is satisfaction. So being satisfied with Allah. Okay, with Allah's decree. Now, these two words, al-ruh wal-raha, could be used synonymously. They could both mean comfort. Allama Majlisi says they mean two different things. Right? So some ulama say when you have two words that are pretty much synonymous, that are mentioned next to each other like this, right? It's a form of emphasis, right? In English, it's not pretty, but in Arabic it is. In Farsi it is as well, like talash and kushesh. You have those always next to each other. But repeating synonymous words it's nice and poetic in Eastern languages, right? So some might say it's because of that. Some might say it's because of emphasis. And some might say, no, these two words are slightly different. Allama Majlisi says that. He says, ruh means peace of the heart, so comfort, internal comfort. And raha signifies comfort of the body, right? So external comfort, I guess. Now, regardless, what he's saying is that yaqeen, right, helps us to find this tranquility and comfort in life. This is important. Because remember, we're talking about doubts. We're trying to get to doubt somehow here, right? When do many people doubt? A lot of times doubts come through hardship. A lot of times doubts come through some negative aspect, something negative that's been thrown into your life. And now you're trying to come to terms with this. You experience trauma. You experience the loss of a loved one. You experience the loss of a job, financial hardship, whatever. People bullying you, whatever. You experience some difficulty. And now you're trying to come to terms. How is it that this world is such and that I have to face this difficulty? Why would Allah make me face this difficulty? And all these doubts start to fester within you, right? Yaqeen throws all of these out the window, right? If you have yaqeen, difficulty becomes easy. Hardship doesn't affect you. Everything's from God, right? That power of our faith makes us unshakable when we have yaqeen. And that's where the imams were. So if you look at the lives of the prophets and the imams and how hard those lives were, right? From historical accounts, their lives were full of tragedies, full of hardship and difficulty. But it didn't affect them because of their yaqeen. So if we want to protect ourselves from feelings of sorrow and feeling really distraught in life, yaqeen helps us protect that, right? وَجَعَلَ الْهَمَّ وَالْحُزَنَ فِي الشَّكْ وَالسَّخْطِ. And he's put sorrow in doubt and dissatisfaction. And again, the word ham and huzn are used either synonymously for emphasis or for eloquence, or they have two different meanings. And Allama Majlisi states that in this states, hem refers to the agitation that's felt by the soul when one experiences doubt. So when one has a doubt, their soul is affected. And the way that their soul is affected, we call that ham. And then huzn is the sorrow that one feels after doubting. So when you have a doubt, right, and your doubt is in your mind, it affects you in one way. And then after that doubt has left and you're thinking, why did I doubt? That affects you another way. And one is ham and one is huzn, right? And it's interesting here that doubt leads to that. And that's true. Doubt is one of the forms of anxiety. It's one of the ways that anxiety presents itself, right? When we are in an excessive amount of doubt and we're questioning and doubting everything, it gives us those psychological and physiological signs of anxiety, right? And obviously, you're not comfortable in that state. Imam Khomeini says, one who considers his felicity or his success to lie in the attainment of the world is afflicted with pain and misery in its pursuit, right? If what I think is success is having a large portion of wealth in this world, right, then I'm going to be putting so much effort into that. All I'm going to be doing is thinking about that. My mind is going to be so occupied in how I could get more money that I'm never going to be comfortable. Even though I have all this money, I'm not comfortable, right? It's not that, oh, yay, I have so much money, I could buy a house and a car and this and that, and now I could put my feet up and sit on a nice comfortable couch and relax. No. If my vision of success is monetary gain, that's all I'm always thinking about. No matter, even if I already have a lot of wealth, I'm still thinking about how to make more money, right? And I'm constantly, I constantly have this internal difficulty and hardship, right? The opposite of tranquility and peace, right? And then if at any time it's taken from me, right? The wealth is removed from me, then that's it. I wouldn't be able to take that, right? So if my vision of success is that, never will I have peace and comfort, right? And that's why doubts, right, cause this level of sorrow that the Imam has mentioned. Ham and huzn, because you never have eternal peace, right? That's the difference between doubt and yaqeen. Inshallah, we learn from this tradition, from the words of the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, and not from my explanation of them, just from the words themselves. And inshallah, with that, we will move on to the question and answer segment after a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Hamid, especially with that final point, how our belief, our faith, sometimes it rests upon what we possess or our position in this world. It brings back to mind the test of Prophet Ayyub alayhi salatu wassalam, one who had so much in this dunya, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afflicted him with a hardship. He took all of it away, and yet the faith of Prophet Ayyub alayhi salatu wasalam, it did not waver, it did not shake at all. That's the level of certainty that we have to strive towards, try our best to reach that goal. What Sheikh Hamid was mentioning, these poisonous feelings that exist within people, jealousy, bitterness, showing off, they're all a result of doubt. And insha'Allah ta'ala, just as the Sheikh said, using that tradition, by reaching the state of yaqeen, the opposite of doubt, we can get rid of all of these, because they're a poison upon society. They're a poison that destroys families, communities, nations. And insha'Allah, we can overcome all of it through inspiration from our imams, through inspiration from our traditions. Once again, please recite a loud salawat for Sheikh Hamid. Sallu ala Muhammad. Insha'Allah ta'ala, with that, we'll proceed to the question answer session for tonight, which will be conducted by our brother Abbas Zadi. Please welcome him with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. That was a great lecture, Sheikh. Something that resonated with me in your speech was the part about having that trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you is for you, and not looking at other people in terms of what they have. So for today's question and answer session, the first question is, if you have doubt that you are in the third or fourth prayer, can you continue praying?
I'm assuming the third and fourth rakat of the prayer, right? So with that one, look, when you're in the third and fourth rakat, you consider yourself in the fourth rakat, right? And you would finish the prayer, and then after prayer, you have to perform one rakat, salat ihtiyat. But let's double check that. There's a whole thing of what you have to do with regards to doubts of prayers. So with the doubts of rakats, if it's between the third and fourth, it's fine. The second and third is fine. The second and fourth is fine. But if it's between the first and the second, or the first and the third, or the first and the fourth, it makes it invalid. So there's some doubts between the rakats that automatically make the prayer invalid. And then there's some doubts that you have to act upon, right? I'm pretty sure from memory, you consider yourself in the fourth, finish your prayer, do a one rakat salat ihtiyat, and you're fine. But double check it with your marja's books. But before you do that, one thing that's very important, when you have a doubt in prayer, right, about the number of rakats you're in, before you act in accordance to it, you need to pause and think, what do you feel it's more likely you're in the third rakat or the fourth rakat? And if you feel that it's a little bit more likely I'm in the third, then you're in the third. If you feel it's a little bit more likely I'm in the fourth, then you're in the fourth. This ruling of doubt is only when it's 50-50 and you don't know, you're not leaning one way. So a lot of people skip that part. That part's very important. And that protects you from falling into one of the, people who excessively doubt and get into the, kathir shek and all the was from there. Between 4 and 5, you consider yourself you're in the fourth, right? It's if you're standing. You would sit down and you would finish the prayer, and then you have to do sajda saw.
The second question is, whenever doubts come to our mind, does it always mean that shaitan has put these doubts in our mind, or is it due to our weak faith?
So it definitely doesn't mean that it's always shaitan that is causing doubts. 100% that's can't be true. But sometimes it could be him. Whether it's due to weak faith or not, I don't want to say it's due to weak faith, but doubts are something that's natural for us to occur in us. Doubts will happen for every single one of us in this room, right? Maybe like the ma'asumeen are the only ones, alayhim salam, that didn't have these type of doubts. So doubts are very natural. And as Brother Jahangir was saying, when we have a doubt, our responsibility is to try to find the answer to that doubt and find, how can I overcome this doubt and move forward in my faith, right? So having the doubt isn't a bad thing. It's just something that naturally occurs in people because Allah has given us curiosity and Allah has given us intellects and He wants us to use them. So sometimes we have doubts.
Thanks for that answer, Sheikh. Our third question for tonight is, if someone who is getting Centrelink payment also is doing a cash job, how does he pay his khums? Does he pay khums and how?
Well, one should not do that. That is not a good thing to do, not first place. But with regards to khums, any money that you make, right, that you earn, and that's saved at the end of the year, you have to pay 20% in khums on that. So both if it comes through Centrelink, especially in this case if it comes through Centrelink, or cash, doesn't make a difference. Whatever is left after the year, right, that you've saved, 20% of that is khums.
And the last question I have is, what do you recommend to practice to remove doubts?
To remove doubts, look, there's two ways of looking at this, right? So if it's just a normal doubt, where it's not a recurring doubt that happens over and over again, right? It's just a doubt that happens once in a while. For instance, the one that you mentioned in prayer, then you just do your duty and move on. If it's a doubt of one of your beliefs, right? So you're doubting some aspect of the religion, then you try to find the answer to that doubt, right? But if it's a doubt that excessively happens, for instance, when you pray, every time you pray, you forget which rakat you're in. Or every time you do wudu, you think you missed a spot. Or you don't know if you have wudu or not, and you end up always doubting about this, right? So if I forgot the exact number, but it's something like 15 times in a row or something like that. If you doubt excessively, right, then the way to remove the doubt is not listening to the doubt, right? So if you're doubting, did I do wudu or not? Yep, I did wudu. I have wudu. If you excessively doubt. If you don't excessively doubt, then there's another protocol you have to follow, right? So it really depends on how much one doubts. I don't know if that makes it more confusing or not, but hopefully that's good.
Is that all? Does anyone else have any other questions that they would like to ask?
The tradition is definitely correct, yes. So there's a concept that we have that's called riya, right? And this would be a really good example for pleasing others while displeasing God, right? So what I'm doing in this instance, if I'm doing riya, where I'm praying or presenting myself as a religious person, right? In order for you to accept me. And then your acceptance of me is for some purpose. Either I want to gain some money from you, position from you, or just your friendship. I want you to like me. I want you to think good about me, popularity, fame, all that. Regardless of why I'm doing it, if my intention of performing a longer prayer, for instance, or of growing a longer beard, or whatever it is to present myself more religious to you, right, is for you to see that and not for God, then that falls under riya. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to please you in order to, and at the same time I'm displeasing God, right? And that's a good, so that would mean I don't have yaqeen if I'm doing that, right? So that's a good example of that. But obviously, if my intentions are fine and I just have long prayers and I'm reading Quran excessively because I want to please God, and you just happen to be there, then that's not a problem. It's all about the intention. Yep. How should we react to that? Okay. Yeah. So the question was, how do we respond or react to a person who is Shia but rejects the Muraja and rejects, following the scholars basically, right? So yesterday I was giving a talk about one of the traditions that we use to support following the ulama, right? And it's a tradition from Imam Zaman alayhi salam. It's actually a letter that the Imam wrote to a person by the name of Ishaq ibn Muhammad, who's the brother of Sheikh Kulaini, right? And in this letter, he wrote, وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثَ الْوَاقِعَةِ, and with regards to new events, فَارْجُعُوا فِيهَا إِلَى رَوَاتِ حَدِيثِنَا, refer to, the ulama in them, right? فَإِنَّهُمْ حُجَّةٌ عَلَيْكُمْ وَأَنَا حُجَّةُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِمْ, right? And they're a hujjah against you, and I'm the hujjah of God against them, right? So we have the words from the Imam himself saying that when he's in the major occultation, that you have to follow the ulama, right? Now, what they would say is, or what some people say is, all right, following a marja in taqleed, right, isn't necessarily that, right? I could follow the ulama by reading their books of hadith from the words of the imams, and that's all I need, right? Whereas I would argue against that. I would say that that's not sufficient, and this tradition is clearly telling us in not only religious matters, but any matter that we would need a religious leader, that we should be following the ulama and the people who would fall under that category, right? So you could intellectually have that discussion with them, but I'm sure they've already come across many arguments, and we might not be able to convince them intellectually about our position. Okay? So if we're not able to convince them intellectually, still they're Shia and they have very similar beliefs to us, but they're not all the way there. Like they're a couple steps, I guess, away. So what I'd still treat them kindly and extend my love and brotherhood to them, and inshallah through positive interactions, hopefully we could guide them, right? But definitely there's so many ahadith and arguments that we should be following the scholars, and verses of Quran as well, that position is pretty, it's baseless, right? But some people unfortunately have it.
And with that, I would like to conclude our event. Thank you all for coming, and inshallah, don't be scared to ask questions, by the way, because they remove doubts. Thank you.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah ta'ala, that lecture, the question answers, and the program altogether helped remove some of our doubts, some of our misgivings with regards to the faith and other areas. And inshallah ta'ala, we can continue developing and improving in our spiritual journey. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Hamid, and all of the brothers tonight who contributed to the program, all of the people in attendance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, inshallah. I'd like to invite Brother Jahangir to recite the ziyarat for tonight. Please welcome him with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
I would like to request everyone to stand, please, on the position so we can recite ziyarah. As-salam.